Welcome back to the Sports Show with Woody and Les and everyone else. And we're going to talk about the Colorado Rapids soccer team right now. The Rapids Report, sponsored by the Celtic Tavern. And right now, let's bring in via the phone Richard Fleming. He's the TV play-by-play voice of the Rapids for Altitude TV. Richard, thanks for coming by. And first question out of the chute. Drew Moor, their captain, has missed the last couple of games. What's going on there? Is he healthy? When's he going to be back in the lineup?
Yeah, he's healthy. He's back. He's been back training this week. I think those that are aware of his long-standing injury, and I know he was with you guys recently. He had the ACL injury, which occurred towards the end of last season, middle of August. He was out for 8 months and then played 3 games in a row on his return. And I think, to be honest, that has just taken its toll. He's been back playing competitive soccer for a few weeks, and 3 games in a row. Plus, they then travelled from Denver to New Jersey, and then New Jersey to LA. And it was that travelling I don't think helped at all. But he has been training this week. He's available for selection, and if fit and healthy, will be in contention for tonight's game.
Richard, how excited should Rapids fans be? How excited should MLS fans be that Kevin Doyle is joining the Rapids shortly? A guy who has scored in his career, I believe, 92 goals in the Premier League. How good is he?
Well, I mean, he's a quality player. And I think anybody that's seen the Rapids this season know that out of the areas on the park, the one area that they're struggling in is finishing, is the execution of their good play. The goalkeeping with Clint Irwin has been solid, 4 clean sheets in the first 5 games. The defense has been solid. They've played 9 different players at the back, and they've conceded among the fewest goals in Major League Soccer. The midfielders, Boston has controlled and has created many chances. But anybody that's seen anything of the Rapids this season will know that where they have been lacking is in front of goal, and has been putting the ball in the back of the net for the amount of chances created. So Kevin Doyle will be the kind of character that we know can score goals, has scored goals throughout his career, and what you would hope is that even if he raises the standard by 5 or 10% of those players around him, then that in itself is going to be a good thing. But he's a quality player. You've got the other new signing, Luis Solignac, that was signed at the end of last week from Argentina. So all of a sudden you've got 2 proven goal scorers that can only, you imagine, help to bolster the Rapids in an area where there have been concerns.
Yeah, Richard, this is Woody, and you brought up where I was going with this, that John Elway talked about, people familiar with the Broncos, that Peyton Manning caused all boats to rise. And I'm wondering, with what you just said, if we can expound on that with these 2 new players who are proven, as you said, proven goal scorers, that this is going to make the players that surround them better players. Can they help them? Will they be mentors for these young guys? And I mean, the defense we talked about, but they're the 4th lowest goal-scoring team in the MLS. I mean,
only 8 goals in 9 games.
Yeah. How do you see this affecting the entire team's enthusiasm, if you will, level of play?
Well, I think it comes down to confidence. I think it's just percentages. As you guys know, I haven't been around sport for many, many years. You know the difference between a poor, an average, and a good side can be percentages. And if you can raise the bar across the team by, as I said, 5 or 10%. We've already had this week Dominique Bacci, who's a rookie, who's already saying he's looking forward to Kevin Doyle coming in because of what he can learn as a rookie from a player with this guy's experience. And you're talking about movement off the ball. You're talking about how he looks after himself away from the training field, how he carries himself on the training field, the attitude, the mental strength, the mental side of the game as well. And we've seen at LA Galaxy that have got a compatriot of Kevin Doyle in Robbie Keane. Robbie Keane has brought on the likes of Jazi Zardes, who's a young LA Galaxy player. And Zardes has already said that without Robbie Keane, he would improve, but he would not improve at the speed, and he certainly wouldn't take on the kind of knowledge that the players like Robbie Keane and obviously now with the Rapids Kevin Doyle can impart. So I think it is that experience that only comes with time. But with rookies, of course, they haven't got time on their side. So if they can learn quicker, under the watchful eye of an experienced player like Kevin Doyle, I think it bodes well for the Rapids over the next few games. And let's not forget, the Rapids are going to be getting Kevin Doyle 6, 7, maybe 8 games earlier than they would otherwise have got him.
This Colorado Rapids report brought to you by the Celtic Tavern, official home of Colorado Rapids. Richard,
I have a question real quick. Richard, I have to ask you this, because I watched you do a game a week or so ago when I was at the Celtic Tavern. Do you think it really aids you in being a play-by-play guy with the Rapids that you have an accent? Because we don't know what you're talking about, if you know what you're talking about, but you sound so good. You sound like
you know your stuff.
When I first arrived, and one of the crew with altitude, Joe, he's a broad New York guy, and I'm not going to try the accent. I did in front of him, and it fell flat. And he said, you guys from England, he said, you also always sound so intelligent. He said, are you all educated? He said, to you, he said, I must sound like a dumbass. And so it is, voices and sounds. But I tell you what, and it's the same with Brazilian soccer players. People hear that you're from Brazil, and instantly you can play the game. People hear that you've got an English accent, and instantly they assume that you know what you're talking about. That does help you. That certainly does help you. I think it is certainly a bonus, but you still got to prove yourself, because the US soccer audience now is a much more intelligent, much more knowledgeable audience. They've got access to wall-to-wall soccer. They've got access to wall-to-wall play-by-play guys. And if I was a fake or a phony, I would be quickly found out. And I'm myself all over again.
I'm a little disappointed by your last statement, because I was thinking if Les and I would move to England, and we talked over there, people would think we were intelligent because we were from the United States. So basically you're saying we'd actually have to prove ourselves. We just couldn't show up with our accent.
Well, I've always been aware that I've had to prove myself on this level. And I think part of that was that I didn't want to come in because I knew that there were colleagues of mine that had come over from England. And that is always the risk, that you're coming in and you don't want to feel that you're throwing your weight around, because you come from England, and because soccer's huge, and because they've got the Premier League, and because they're rich in history. That doesn't mean that we're any better at calling a game or understanding the game or appreciating the sport. It's a global sport. So I wasn't going to come in here and throw my weight around. And I really tried to be as humble and as
good
as laid back, because it's a global sport, and I wasn't going to assume that purely because I was from England that I knew more or knew better or knew at far more technical level than anybody else. There are as many, if not more, technically sound and astute soccer fans in this country than there are in England. And the game is a global game, and the fact that it is a global game means that no other country should assume that they know more than anybody else. So I came in with the approach that I've got to prove myself all over again. Just because I have got that accent, it might impress for the first few games, but then you've got to prove yourself all over again. And I've tried to take that approach and try not to have a swagger and assume too much and assume that I know more than everybody else. I'm just, I've always said throughout my career in newspapers and radio and television, I'm a glorified fan that just has a very, very fortunate job that I get to talk about a sport and people listen to me talking. And
well, Richard,
we
appreciate your play-by-play work for Altitude TV and the Colorado Rapids. We appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Take care.
All right, he's Richard Fleming, and you can listen to him on Altitude.